Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the meticulous strategy and, well, the recent legal drama behind the ultimate luxury powerhouse, Hermès.
So how exactly did a 19th century harness workshop convince the modern world to wait years and drop literally millions of dollars just for the chance to buy a handbag? It's a fascinating question, right? And it sits right at the very heart of modern consumer psychology and luxury economics.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll hit 1. Origins of an empire, 2. Birth of the icons, 3. Craftsmanship and scarcity model, 4. Playing the Hermès game, 5. Retail prices and resale, and finally 6. The antitrust lawsuit. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Origins of an empire, from saddles to status. To really grasp their dominance today, we gotta rewind to when their entire focus was purely on utilitarian perfection.
It all starts in 1837. Thierry Hermès founds this workshop in Paris, completely focused on outfitting European noblemen's horses with the absolute finest harnesses and riding gear. But watch what happens as the century turns. By 1900, they introduced the Haute Acaroas bag. Now, this was literally a heavy-duty leather bag meant for riders to carry their saddles around in. But this beautiful, functional craftsmanship naturally paved the way for consumer handbags in the 1920s. By the 1930s, they roll out the sac à dépêche, which you probably know better as the Kelly bag, famously named after Grace Kelly. So they're moving very deliberately from equestrian gear straight into crafting the world's most coveted fashion accessories.
Which brings us to Section 2, Birth of the Icons, Meeting Modern Needs. Let's look at how this evolution gave us their legendary quota bags. This is such a great story. Back in 1984, the actress and singer Jane Birkin is on a flight from Paris to London. She ends up sitting next to Hermès CEO Jean-Louis Dumas, and she's complaining to him that she just can't find a good medium-sized travel bag. It's wild to think about, but the Birkin, the undisputed king of all handbags, was born from that single, random chance encounter.
Section 3, Craftsmanship and Scarcity Model, the Hermès philosophy. So how do they defend this iconic status? How do they stay at the absolute pinnacle while the market around them expands and mass produces?
Former CEO Jean-Louis Dumas really hit the nail on the head here. He said, "We don't have a policy of image, we have a policy of product." They fiercely avoid typical marketing departments. They don't do paid celebrity endorsements. They intentionally position themselves as the anti-conglomerate. They want to remain ultra-premium luxury. I mean, they're even infamously known to literally burn imperfect Birkins just to prove their unwavering dedication to absolute quality.
And you see this in their core values across all their operations. Take craftsmanship. Every single bag must be crafted almost entirely by hand, in France, by one single artisan. And it's no joke. These artisans undergo up to 5 years of mandatory training before they're ever trusted to touch the premium leather of a Birkin or Kelly bag. This intense, uncompromising focus naturally creates a massive bottleneck in supply.
Which leads to this really fascinating economic theory at play, their scarcity model. Usually Economics 101 says, if demand is high, you just raise the price to match it. But Hermès does something different. Instead of just jacking up prices for anyone with cash, they artificially ration their bags. They manage demand by queue. And what happens? All that pent-up, frustrated demand just overflows into their other product lines, like wallets, silk scarves, and clothing.
All right, Section 4, Playing the Hermès game, the path to quota bags. This overflowed demand has created an absolutely wild consumer ritual.
Because look, you can't just walk into a store and buy a Birkin or a Kelly. You have to jump through serious hoops. First, you buy what are essentially bait items, ready-to-wear clothes, shoes, that sort of thing. Then, you spend a long time building a massive purchase history, usually hitting 5 to 6 figures, ideally with the exact same sales associate. Then, if you are lucky, you get invited to a private room and offered a bag. And the crazy part? You usually get absolutely no say in the size, the leather, or the color. You just take what you're offered. You literally have to prove you are a true disciple of the brand before they allow you the privilege of buying a handbag.
Section 5, Retail Prices and Resale, the Economics of Scarcity. As you can imagine, this gauntlet leads to some staggering financial realities.
Direct from the boutique, a brand new Birkin ranges from $12,000 to around $300,000. That base price depends heavily on whether you get standard leather or a super delicate exotic hide like ostrich or crocodile. But remember, that is just the retail cost. That doesn't count the tens of thousands you likely had to spend on other stuff just to get offered the bag in the first place.
Because it's so incredibly difficult to buy direct, the secondary resale market just explodes. Case in point, in 2014, an ultra-rare Himalayan Nilo crocodile Birkin went to auction and completely shattered expectations, selling for a massive $185,000.
But even that pales in comparison to this, the absolute pinnacle of the secondary market. Jane Birkin's original namesake bag secured a jaw-dropping record price of over $10.1 million at a Sotheby's auction. This artificial scarcity has literally turned these bags into highly volatile, high-yield investment assets.
Which brings us to Section 6, the antitrust lawsuit, Cavallare v. Hermès, because recently this extreme barrier to entry turned into a fierce federal legal battle in the U.S. In early 2024, plaintiffs out in California actually took Hermès to court. They argued that this famed exclusivity, specifically the unspoken requirement to build a massive purchase history, was actually an illegal, anti-competitive practice that was harming consumers.
The core legal concept here is called a tying arrangement. Basically, the plaintiffs allege that being forced to buy ancillary products, shoes, belts, homeware, just to unlock the ability to purchase a highly desired Birkin violates federal antitrust laws. They genuinely felt they were being coerced.
So you have this showdown. The plaintiffs feel unfairly extorted by the system, but Hermès vigorously defended themselves. They successfully argued, look, we don't hold a monopoly power in the broader luxury handbag market. Their point was that nobody is physically forced to buy an Hermès bag. It's a market heavily driven by consumer choice, and there are plenty of other luxury options out there if you don't want to engage with their specific sales model. And the U.S. District Court actually agreed. In September 2025, they officially dismissed the federal antitrust claims with prejudice. The judge essentially said the plaintiffs failed to plausibly allege a relevant product market or a real antitrust injury. So this sets a major precedent, allowing luxury retailers to legally continue these highly restrictive purchase history systems in the U.S., though it is worth noting an appeal is still pending.
But the regulatory game isn't completely over on a global scale. Authorities over in the European Union are taking a much harsher stance. Under their Article 102, the EU places significantly less weight on efficiency justifications than U.S. law does. With active investigations already hitting other major fashion conglomerates, this stricter European scrutiny could eventually force luxury brands to alter how they operate globally.
So as the lines between meticulous craftsmanship, brilliant brand management, and artificial scarcity continue to blur, I want you to ask yourself, is the Hermès game the ultimate proof of luxury or a monopoly in disguise? What really defines true luxury today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the systems behind the brands you see every day, and we'll catch you next time.